The first thing my sister said when she saw me holding the envelope was, "Please tell me you're not about to make this night about you." The room went quiet in that ugly, expectant way families go quiet when they smell a fight coming. My mother stood at the head of the dining table in her pearl-colored blouse, one hand wrapped around a wine glass, the other braced on the chair like she was the woman of a much better house than the one I'd helped keep standing. My brother-in-law, Derek, leaned back against the kitchen counter, smirking into his bourbon. My younger cousin, Tasha, looked down at her phone, pretending she didn't want front row seats. And my father, who had perfected the art of acting absent while sitting right there, kept cutting his steak. I looked at the envelope in my hand, then at the stack of wrapped boxes on the sideboard, then back at my mother. "It already is about me," I said. A sharp little laugh escaped my sister Vanessa. "Oh my God!" She was wearing cream silk, diamonds at her ears, the whole perfect hostess act. This dinner was supposed to celebrate her and Derek closing on a larger house across town. Bigger kitchen, better school district, more space for the image they spent half their lives trying to sell. The image where I was the cautionary tale. Vanessa set her glass down. "You show up late in that coat with some mystery envelope, and now you want attention?" "In that coat" meant the same black wool coat I'd worn for 3 winters because I didn't waste money trying to impress people who were already committed to misunderstanding me. Derek took a slow sip. "Let it go, babe. You know how she gets." There it was. She. Never my name. Never Mara. Just she, like I was a weather problem. I slid my thumbnail under the edge of the envelope flap, but didn't open it yet. Not yet. My pulse was too loud. Not fear. Not exactly. More like the pressure right before glass cracks. My mother looked at me over her wine. "Mara, your sister invited you because she was being kind. Don't embarrass yourself." That almost made me laugh. Kind. I looked around the dining room. The chandelier was new. The rug was new. The sideboard was definitely new. Vanessa had been posting little videos all month about fresh starts and finally stepping into the life we deserve. I knew exactly how much all of it cost. I knew because 3 days earlier I'd sat at my tiny kitchen table with a cup of burnt coffee and a row of numbers on my laptop that did not lie. But that wasn't tonight's first bomb. Tonight's first bomb had happened 20 minutes earlier, before dinner, when I walked in through the side door and heard my name from the pantry. I hadn't meant to eavesdrop. I just paused because Vanessa's voice had that bright, venomous edge it always got when she was performing for an audience. "She still hasn't figured it out," Vanessa said. Derek laughed. "Why would she? She's too busy trying to look noble." Then my mother. Honestly, letting Mara believe she's helping is the only way to keep her useful. Useful. I stood outside that pantry with my hand still on the doorknob and felt something in me go very still. Not broken, still, like a blade laid flat on a table. At dinner, I made it through the salad, through Derek explaining adjustable rates like he had invented home financing, through Vanessa talking about financial discipline while her bracelet flashed under chandelier light, through my mother telling Tasha, loudly enough for me to hear, some people struggle because they make emotional decisions instead of smart ones. Then dessert came out, lemon cake on white china. My sister tapped her fork against her glass and smiled at the room. "I just want to say how grateful I am," she said, "for family who believes in us, supports us, and cheers us on." Her eyes flicked to me, a tiny pause. Then she added, "Even the ones who can't contribute much." Derek chuckled first. My mother smiled into her wine. Tasha made that awkward, half-choked sound people make when they know something is cruel but don't want to be the one to say it. My face stayed calm. That was the part they never understood. They thought silence meant weakness. They thought because I didn't swing first, I didn't know how to end a fight. Vanessa lifted her fork. "To new beginnings." I didn't raise my glass. Instead, I reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope. My mother's eyes narrowed. "What is that?" Something I should have brought up a long time ago. Vanessa rolled her eyes. "Please don't do a speech." "It's not a speech." Derek pushed off the counter. "Then what is it?" I looked at him. Really looked at him. At the polished watch he couldn't afford. At the man who'd called me broke to my face 2 Christmases in a row while cashing relief checks he never mentioned. Then I looked at my mother, who hadn't paid her own electric bill in 14 months. Then my father, who knew more than he ever said. Then Vanessa, glowing in borrowed wealth and cheap contempt. I placed the envelope on the table beside the cake. "I heard what you said in the pantry," I said. Vanessa went pale for half a second, then recovered fast. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." My mother straightened. "Mara, enough." "No," I said, and my own voice surprised me. It was low, steady, clean. "You all have had enough." The room shifted. Even my father stopped cutting his steak. I tapped the envelope once. Inside this are copies of every payment confirmation, transfer record, and account note connected to this family for the last 2 years. Derek laughed too quickly. "What? You printed your budget spreadsheet? Congratulations." I met his eyes. "No. I printed yours." The smirk fell off his face. Vanessa stared at me. "What did you just say?" I slid one paper halfway out, enough for them to see the bank letterhead, the transaction dates, the masked account numbers. Not enough for the full damage. Not yet. And for the first time all night, nobody had a joke. "If you've ever been betrayed by family," I said quietly, "you know the exact moment respect dies in the room." My mother set her glass down harder than she meant to. "Where did you get that?" I looked at her, then at Vanessa. "That's the wrong question." Derek stepped toward the table. "Give me that." I put my hand flat over the envelope. He stopped, because whatever he saw on my face made him stop. The house was silent, except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the faint clink of my father's fork settling against his plate. Vanessa's voice came out thinner now. "Mara," I held her gaze. "You all called me broke," I said. "So let's talk about who's actually been paying what." Vanessa stared at the envelope like it might explode. Derek recovered first. Men like him always did. Not because they were calm, but because bluff was the only language they spoke when panic hit. He gave a short laugh and reached for his drink again. "This is insane. You come in here, make some dramatic accusation, and expect everybody to play along?" "I'm not asking anyone to play along," I said. "I'm giving you a chance to tell the truth before I do it for you." My mother pushed her chair back. "I will not sit here and listen to this in my house." I turned to her. "Your house?" That landed. Just enough to make her mouth tighten. Vanessa stepped in fast. Don't start twisting words because you're upset." I pulled the first sheet from the envelope and laid it on the tablecloth between the cake stand and my mother's plate. A payment confirmation. Electric utility. Account ending in 4182. Paid in full. Date stamped from 6 months ago. My mother's eyes dropped to it, then snapped back to me. "That proves nothing." I slid out a second page and set it beside the first. Another utility payment. Different month. Same account. Then a third. Water. Then a fourth. Past due property tax installment. The color in her face changed so subtly, most people wouldn't notice it. I did. I'd spent years learning their tells because no one survives a family like mine without becoming a student of facial muscles. Derek scoffed, but there was strain in it now. "Anyone can print documents." "True," I said, "which is why I brought the transfer logs, too." I laid down 3 more pages. Wire confirmations, monthly, same dates, almost like clockwork. Routed through a household account Vanessa had once claimed was their budgeting system. I remember that exact phrase because she'd said it in front of me at brunch, right after joking that I probably still checked prices before buying shampoo. Tasha finally looked up from her phone. Her eyes moved over the papers, then to Vanessa. "Wait." Vanessa shot her a warning look. "Stay out of it." No one moved. My father dabbed his mouth with his napkin and said, very carefully, "Mara, explain what I'm looking at." That was his style. Calm voice, neutral words, as though he were moderating a business meeting instead of a family ambush. I appreciated it anyway. Neutral was the closest thing to mercy anyone had offered me in years. "You're looking," I said, "at the bills I've been covering." My mother gave a disbelieving laugh. "That is absurd, is it?" "Yes." "Then say which part." Her chin lifted. "All of it." I nodded once and pulled another document free. Mortgage arrears notice. Not for Vanessa. For my mother. 3 months behind from the year before. Stamped received, then followed by a payment summary clearing the overdue balance 48 hours later. Her hand shot out before she could stop herself, fingers touching the corner of the page. There it was. Not surprise. Recognition. Vanessa saw it too. "Mom?" My mother pulled her hand back. "I don't know where she got these." "You sent them," I said. The room snapped toward me. My mother blinked. "What?" You sent them. To me. Late at night, usually after pretending all week that everything was fine. I looked at Vanessa now. She never told you that part, did she? Vanessa's face hardened. Told me what? I almost pitied her then. Almost. I reached into the envelope again, and this time took out printed email chains. Not screenshots. Full threads with headers, timestamps, subject lines. I spread them one by one across the table. Subject, just temporary. Subject, need a small bridge loan. Subject, don't mention this to your sister. Vanessa leaned forward before she caught herself. Derek went still. My mother said, "Those are private." I let out a breath that felt like it had been trapped in my chest for a year. Private is interesting, coming from the woman who called me useful in a pantry 15 feet from where I was standing. Tasha whispered, "Oh my God." My mother's voice sharpened. "You were listening?" I was arriving. Vanessa looked at her. "Mom? Don't." My mother snapped. Vanessa turned back to me, and now the hostess mask was gone. "You're lying." I slid one email out from the stack and turned it so she could read it. Her own name sat there in black text. "Mara, don't tell Vanessa. She and Derek are stretched thin with the new place, and I refuse to add more pressure before closing. Just cover the insurance installment this once. I'll make it right next month." Signed, Mom. Vanessa didn't touch the page. She just stared at it, jaw tight, eyes scanning each line like she could will the words into something else. Derek stepped closer to her shoulder. "That could be fabricated." I nodded. "That's why I also brought the voicemail transcripts." His head turned fast. "The what?" I held up my phone, not playing anything yet, just holding it where they could see the folder on the screen. Dates, audio files, backed up, labeled impossible to wave away with a laugh. Vanessa's voice dipped lower. More dangerous now. "Why would you keep all of this?" I looked at her. "Because every time one of you called me dramatic, irresponsible, unstable, or broke, I realized something." She crossed her arms. "Say it." "You weren't forgetting what I'd done for you." I tapped the papers. "You were counting on me never proving it." No one had an answer for that. My father leaned back in his chair and looked at my mother with the kind of silence that wasn't passive anymore. It was measuring. He'd spent years pretending not to notice the machinery of manipulation as long as it kept running quietly. But paper on a white tablecloth was harder to ignore than tension in the air. Tasha swallowed. "Vanessa, did you know?" Vanessa looked at Derek before answering, and that told me everything. Not all of it, but enough. "I knew Mom needed help a few times," she said. "That's it? A few?" I asked. Derek cut in. "This is none of your cousin's business." "No," I said. "But it is mine. Since apparently I've been financing half this family while being treated like the failure at the table." My mother stood. "You offered." I laughed then. Actually laughed. That shook them more than shouting would have. "Offered?" I repeated. "You cried on the phone and said the lights might get cut off." Her face went cold. "So now you want applause?" "No. I wanted decency." Vanessa's hands were trembling now, tiny movements she tried to hide by folding them tighter. "How much?" The question sat there, heavy, irreversible. Derek immediately said, "Vanessa, don't." But she didn't look at him. She looked at me. "How much, Mara?" I slid the final page from the envelope, a spreadsheet summary. Dates, accounts, amounts, total at the bottom in bold. Vanessa read it first, then Derek. And the second Derek saw the number, he lunged for the papers. Derek's hand slapped the table before it reached the papers. I caught his wrist mid-grab, not hard, just enough. But the shock on his face made it seem like I'd pulled a knife. "Don't," I said. His jaw flexed. "Take your hand off me." Then step back. For one long second, nobody breathed. Then my father stood up. "Derek," he said. That was all. Just his name. But Derek yanked his hand free and took one step back from the table, smoothing the front of his shirt like he was the one trying to restore order. Vanessa was still staring at the total. Her lips parted, closed, parted again. "That can't be right." "It is," I said. "No." She shook her head and looked up at me. "No, because this says..." "I know what it says." Tasha leaned sideways, trying to read the bottom line from where she sat. My mother moved the paper a fraction too late. Too late still counted as late. Tasha saw enough. 38,000? She said, stunned. Silence. Then my mother snapped, "Don't say numbers out loud." I looked at her and almost admired the instinct. Not shame, not apology. Control. Always control. Vanessa's chair scraped against the floor as she stood. $38,000? Over 26 months, I said, not all at once. Derek dragged a hand over his mouth. This is ridiculous. No, I said. Ridiculous was you calling me cheap because I brought store-brand wine to Christmas after I'd paid your homeowner's insurance 3 days earlier. That hit Vanessa first. Her head turned slowly toward him, then to my mother, then back to the spreadsheet. I could almost see the timeline rearranging itself behind her eyes. Little comments, convenient rescues, last-minute save jobs. Every crisis that had somehow vanished before it touched her. My mother drew herself up. You are presenting this like we robbed you. I stared at her. She kept going because she mistook silence for space. You helped family. Families help each other. Is that what this was? Yes. Then why did you hide it? Her face froze. I stepped around the chair and pulled one more sheet from the envelope. Not a bill, not a transfer log, a handwritten note, folded, flattened, old at the creases. I set it down in front of Vanessa. My sister frowned. What is this? The note Mom left in my mailbox last August. My mother's face changed instantly. Mara? Vanessa picked it up before anyone could stop her. It was written in my mother's careful church handwriting, blue ink pressed hard enough to dent the page. Just need you to cover this quietly. Derek's pride is fragile, and Vanessa doesn't need more stress before the refinance. Do not bring this up at dinner. Ever. I mean it. Vanessa read it once, then again, then much slower. Derek looked at my mother. You wrote that? She folded her arms. That note was taken out of context. I almost smiled. Amazing. We finally found a context you care about. Mara, my father said low, but he didn't tell me to stop. He said my name like a warning to be careful, not obedient. It was a difference I felt in my bones. Vanessa set the note down with deliberate care. You told her not to tell me? My mother's voice softened instantly. Sweetheart? No. Vanessa backed away from her. Don't sweetheart me. Derek stepped in. Vanessa, listen. Your mom was just trying to manage things until we got through closing. I turned to him. Closing? He made the mistake of looking at me. I pulled out another page. This one wasn't from my mother's account. This one was theirs. Joint account. Mortgage lender escrow shortage. Final notice. Vanessa went white. Derek saw the page and went red. He moved fast, trying to snatch it, but this time my father got there first. He took the paper from my hand and read it himself. No expression. That was worse than anger with him. He looked up at Derek. Why was an escrow shortage notice being sent to Mara? Derek's mouth opened, closed. I answered for him, because his email was connected as the backup contact on an old application, and when he missed the lender messages, they rolled to the secondary address. Vanessa turned to Derek so sharply her chair legs screeched against the floor. Why would her email be on your application? Derek gave a short, breathless laugh. It wasn't. Not like that. Then like what? He looked at my mother. Wrong move. Vanessa saw it. You went through Mom? My mother jumped in. It was just paperwork. I laughed again, quieter this time. That phrase should be on your headstone. Tasha covered her mouth. My father was still reading the notice, then the payment confirmation clipped behind it. His eyes moved once across the amount. I knew the exact moment he understood, because he lowered the page very slowly. You paid this? He asked me. Yes. When? 11 days before their lender deadline. Vanessa stared at Derek. You told me we were fine. We were going to be fine. That's not what I asked. He exhaled hard. I had a cash flow gap. A cash flow gap? Vanessa's voice rose. You stood in this house 2 weeks ago and joked that Mara probably still used coupons. He pointed at me like that proved something. Because she acts like she's above everything. I stepped closer. No, I act like money isn't performance. His eyes narrowed. You always loved this. This martyr act. The word landed wrong in the room. Too ugly, too fast. Vanessa looked at him as if she'd never heard his real voice before and hated the sound of it. My mother sensed the shift and lunged for the only tool she had left. Guilt. She pressed a hand to her chest and sat back down. I can't do this tonight. Tasha half rose from her chair. Aunt Linda? I said I can't do this. I knew that move too. Collapse the room, redirect the fire, make everyone comfort the person who lit the match. It almost worked. Almost. Then my father placed the escrow notice back on the table and said, with terrifying calm, You're going to do it tonight. My mother looked at him like he'd spoken in another language. He pulled out his chair, but didn't sit. He looked at me. Take out the rest. Derek swore under his breath. Vanessa whispered, There's more? I held her gaze. Yes, I said. A lot more. And for the first time that night, my sister looked afraid of what her husband might have done. Vanessa didn't sit back down. She stayed standing at the end of the table, one hand gripping the chair so tightly her knuckles lost color. Derek had gone quiet in the worst way. Shoulders locked, jaw hard, eyes moving too fast. My mother kept dabbing at the corner of one eye with a napkin she didn't need. My father looked at the envelope. Now, he said. So I opened it all the way. Paper slid over linen in neat, terrible stacks. Utility confirmations. Past due notices. Transfer records. Insurance reinstatement letters. Email threads. A certified mailing receipt. The kind of proof that didn't care who was offended. Derek gave a bitter laugh. You really planned a whole show. No, I said. You planned it. I just stopped protecting it. That shut him up for a second. Vanessa looked down at the table like she was staring at wreckage after impact, still trying to understand what had flown off first. Start from the beginning. I nodded once. Fine. I separated the papers into 3 stacks. One is Mom's house, I said, touching the first pile. Utilities, property tax, and the insurance lapse from last summer. My mother muttered, it was temporary. I ignored her and touched the second pile. One is you and Derek. Escrow shortage, 2 mortgage stopgaps, your car note the month it bounced, and the moving deposit for the new place. Vanessa's head snapped up. The moving deposit? Derek said flatly, that's not true. I pulled out the receipt and laid it in front of her. Certified funds, routing confirmation, date, amount, property management company. Vanessa read the company name and went still, because it was real, because she recognized it, because she remembered that week. I thought that was from your bonus, she said to Derek. He didn't answer. Derek, he rubbed his forehead. It was handled. That's not an answer. It got paid, didn't it? The room recoiled at that. Not because of the words, because of how easy they came out. Vanessa stared at him like a stranger had sat down in her husband's skin. I touched the 3rd stack. And this, I said, is everything that links the 2 of them. My mother straightened. There is nothing linking us except family. I pulled out a printout of bank transfers between my mother's account and Derek's personal account. Not Vanessa and Derek. Just Derek. Monthly. Small enough not to draw attention. Consistent enough to mean something. My father took the page before anyone else could. His eyes narrowed. Linda? My mother's voice sharpened. That is money I lent him. Vanessa turned. You lent him money? It wasn't a big deal. How much? Vanessa, how much? My mother pressed her lips together. I answered. Over 10,000 across 14 months. Vanessa stared, then looked at Derek. Why would you borrow from my mother and not tell me? Roki opened his hands like he was the reasonable one. Because every time finances come up, you panic. Vanessa actually laughed, a short, broken sound. I panic? She said. You hid debt from me, took money from my mother, and let my sister cover a deposit you told me came from your job. He stepped toward her. Keep your voice down. That did it. Something in her face hardened so completely it almost made me miss the old version of her. Don't tell me what tone to use, she said. Nobody moved. Then my father asked the question I had been waiting for. What happened to the money? Derek looked at him. Excuse me? The money. My father held up the transfer sheet. If you were borrowing from Linda, missing lender notices, and needing Mara to cover household shortfalls, where did it go? Derek's eyes flicked to me, then to Vanessa. Bills. Life. Closing costs. Not all of it, I said. He turned on me instantly. You don't know what you're talking about. I reached into the envelope and took out the one document I had almost left at home, because this was the one that made everything uglier. A credit card statement. Not theirs. His. I placed it in front of Vanessa. She looked confused for a second. Then she saw the charges. Hotel, jewelry store, restaurant, weekend spa resort, all within a 6-week stretch when he'd been claiming they needed to tighten spending and postponing contractor payments on the new house. Vanessa didn't blink, didn't breathe, just read. Derek's voice went low. Dangerous. That is private. My father looked at him with open disgust. You're very interested in privacy tonight. Vanessa's finger moved down the page. What is this? No one answered. She looked up at Derek. What is this? He set his jaw. Business meetings. I almost laughed, but Vanessa beat me to it. At the Halcyon Spa, he didn't answer. She flipped to the next page. Same pattern. More charges. Same hotel. Same florist. One purchase at a boutique I knew she'd never shopped at because Vanessa hated that brand and called it overpriced nonsense. Her hands started shaking. "Who?" she asked, very softly. "Were you buying jewelry for?" My mother stepped in too quickly. "This is getting out of hand." Vanessa rounded on her. "Did you know?" "No." "You're lying." "Vanessa, you always know." The words cut harder than any shout in the room. My mother flinched. Derek saw the room turning and did what weak people do when truth corners them. He attacked the source. "This is insane," he snapped, pointing at me. "She's obsessed. That's what this is. She's been collecting scraps for months because she can't stand that some people actually built a life." I stepped toward him. "Built?" I said. "You mean staged." He smirked. "Mean and desperate. You're jealous." "Of what?" He spread his hands toward the chandelier, the dining room, the new boxes stacked by the wall. "Of this." I looked around slowly, then back at him. "This?" I said. "The house your wife thinks she can afford, the bills her mother can't pay, and the debt I've been quietly carrying while you call me broke?" His face changed, just a flicker, but I saw it. Fear, not of being judged, of being exposed further, because he knew there was still one section of that envelope I hadn't touched. Vanessa saw my eyes shift toward the remaining papers. "What else?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. My father did. He looked from Derek to the sealed packet still sitting at the bottom of the envelope and said, "Whatever it is, put it on the table." I took the packet out. Unlike the others, this one was clipped together and stamped from a law office downtown. Vanessa read the letterhead upside down and whispered, "Why would a lawyer be involved?" Derek lunged before I could set it down. This time he didn't go for the papers. He went for the envelope itself. Derek's hand closed around the envelope. My father caught his forearm so fast the chair beside him tipped backward. "Sit down," my father said. It wasn't loud. That made it worse. Derek froze, chest rising hard under his dress shirt, eyes cutting from my father's hand to mine. For a second he looked like he might swing anyway. Then he saw Vanessa watching him, really watching him. He let go. The envelope bent where his fingers had crushed the edge. I smoothed it flat against the table and set the clipped packet on the linen between the plates. No one touched it. The law office stamp sat there like a loaded weapon. Vanessa looked at Derek. "Why is there a lawyer?" He gave a humorless laugh. "There isn't. She's bluffing." I unclipped the packet. The first page was a demand letter. Formal header. Case reference number. Amount due. Failure to satisfy prior written requests. The kind of paper that drained all warmth out of a room. My mother went pale before I even slid it forward. Interesting. Very interesting. I placed it in front of my father instead of Vanessa. He read fast, eyes narrowing line by line, then slower. Then he looked up at Derek. "What is Premier Trade Supply?" Derek's face shut down. Not confusion, recognition. I answered. "A materials vendor," Vanessa frowned. "For what materials?" I pulled out the invoice copies clipped behind the letter. Flooring, fixtures, custom cabinetry deposit, payment terms net 30, final reminder, then collections notice. The top invoice had Derek's email, Derek's number, Derek's signature. Vanessa stared. "These are for the new house." "Yes," she turned to him. "You said all the contractor money was settled. It was being settled." I slid the next page out. Returned payment notice, then another, then one more. 3 attempts. All failed. Vanessa whispered, "No." Derek finally snapped. "Can you stop doing that?" "Doing what?" "That little performance voice like you're shocked by how money works." My father dropped the letter on the table. "Watch yourself." Derek ignored him. He was too deep in it now, too busy clawing for control. "There were timing issues," he said. "That's all." I shook my head. "No, timing issues are one missed transfer. This was 4 months of lying." He turned on me. "You don't know what you're talking about. I know the vendor sent a legal notice after the last payment failed. That doesn't mean anything. It means they were preparing to file." Vanessa looked at the packet, then at him. "File what?" I pulled the final page from the clip. Draft complaint. Civil filing. Breach of contract and recovery of unpaid balance. Not filed yet. Prepared. Waiting. Vanessa sat down hard. The room felt smaller now, the air heavier, every clean, polished thing in that dining room suddenly ridiculous. The chandelier, the candles, the lemon cake no one had touched. It all looked staged around a collapse. My mother found her voice first. Why would this come to Mara? Because she already knew the answer. I could hear it. Because they were copied on an email chain, I said. And when Derek stopped replying, someone from the firm reached out to every listed contact tied to prior payments. Vanessa looked up slowly. Prior payments? I held her gaze. Yes. Derek swore. My father's head turned. Mara? I pulled another sheet from the envelope. The first time the vendor threatened to pause work, I paid $6,000 to keep the contractor from walking off. Vanessa stared like she hadn't heard me correctly. You what? The first time, I repeated. She blinked. First? I set down another receipt. And the second time, I paid $2,800 to clear the lighting order they were holding at the warehouse. Her face emptied out. Derek dragged a chair back and sat, elbows on knees, hands clasped like he was trying to hold himself together by force. You had no right, I looked at him. No right to stop your life from blowing up? No right to interfere. Vanessa laughed again, harsher now. Interfere? She paid for our house. You wanted the house, he shot back. No, we wanted a house, not a performance. That line hit him harder than the documents had. I saw it in the way he looked away. Tasha had gone dead silent at the corner of the table, phone face down now, forgotten. My mother kept glancing between Vanessa and Derek, calculating where to stand, whose side might still be survivable. My father just watched. That was new. He'd always been quiet, but this was different. This was a tension with teeth. Vanessa lifted one of the invoices again. Why didn't you tell me? Derek exhaled through his nose. Because you would have made it worse. She looked up. Worse than this? He didn't answer, so I did. He thought he could catch up before you noticed. Vanessa turned to me. How do you know that? Because I had the email. I didn't say it yet. I just took it from the envelope and held it. Derek saw the page and went still. There it was again. Fear. Real this time. Vanessa noticed. What is that? He stood up. Don't. I set the page down in front of her. Printed email. Derek to my mother. Need Mara to cover this one quietly. I can make Vanessa believe it's delayed escrow reconciliation. She doesn't read the details if I summarize them first. No one moved. No one even looked at me. Vanessa read the message once. Then again. Then her eyes lifted to Derek's face with a kind of horror I had never seen in her before. Because this wasn't just debt anymore. This was contempt. Structured. Planned. Written contempt. She doesn't read the details, she said. Derek didn't speak. She doesn't read the details, she repeated louder. My mother tried to intervene. Vanessa, calm down. Vanessa slammed her hand on the table so hard the forks jumped. Do not tell me to calm down. My mother actually recoiled. Vanessa stood, turning on Derek fully now. You wrote that about me? He ran a hand through his hair. It was a private email. She gave him a look so cold it could have cracked glass. You keep saying private like it means harmless. He took a step toward her. I was under pressure. From what? The wife you lied to? The sister-in-law you used? Or the mother-in-law who kept covering for you? That last part snapped the room toward my mother. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Wrong move again. Vanessa saw everything in that silence. You knew, she said. My mother lifted both hands. I knew there were shortfalls. You knew he was lying to me. I was trying to protect your marriage. No, Vanessa said. You were protecting the story. The words hung there, because they were true. Our family had always loved the story more than the people inside it. Who looked successful, who looked stable, who looked disappointing. Facts only mattered when they supported the script. I had been paying for the script. Derek straightened and did the last thing he had left. He pointed at me and said, ask her where she got the money. The room shifted. Vanessa turned to me. My father's eyes narrowed. Even my mother looked up. Derek saw it working and pressed harder. Yeah, go ahead. Ask Saint Mara how she covered all this while acting like she could barely afford rent. I said nothing. He laughed once, ugly and relieved. That's what I thought. Vanessa looked between us. Mara? I put my hand on the last sealed folder still inside the envelope. Not the law office packet. The other one. The one I hadn't wanted to bring out until later. The one with my name on it. And Derek, reading my face too late, whispered, no. The folder was cream-colored, thick at the corners, my name typed across the tab in black block letters. For the first time all night, I didn't want to open something because of what it would do to them. I didn't want to open it because of what it would drag back through me. Vanessa looked at the tab. What is that? Derek didn't sit. He stood at the head of the table with both palms flat on the wood, eyes fixed on the folder, like he could still stop it by staring hard enough. "Mara," he said, voice low, "don't do this." That almost made me smile. He'd had no problem doing this when it was me getting carved up in little comments over birthday dinners and holidays and backyard barbecues. But now that the truth had a binder clip and a paper trail, suddenly he wanted mercy. I pulled the folder out and laid it beside the law office packet. "It answers your question," I said. My father watched me carefully. "What question?" I looked at Derek. "Where the money came from." Vanessa turned toward him again. "Why would you even ask that like it was some gotcha?" "Because it is a gotcha," he said fast. Too fast. "You think this just appeared out of nowhere? Look at her. She's been playing poor for years." My mother gave a tiny nod, seizing the opening. "Exactly." I laughed under my breath. There it was again. They could stand in a room full of receipts proving fraud, lies, and manipulation and still grab for image first. "Playing poor?" I repeated. My mother straightened. "You always acted like you were barely getting by." "No," I said. "I acted like I wasn't stupid." I opened the folder. The first page was a statement summary. Not from a checking account. Not from payroll. From a trust administrator. Vanessa frowned. My father leaned in. My mother went perfectly still. I set the page in the center of the table. Account name, Mara Ellison Trust. Vanessa blinked. "Trust?" Derek swore softly. My father looked up at me. "What is this?" I didn't take my eyes off my mother. "That depends. Do you want the short version or the honest one?" No one answered, so I gave them the honest one. "When Grandma Ruth died," I said, "she left money." My mother's lips parted. "Mara," I raised a hand, and for once she stopped. "She left money," I repeated. "Not equally, not publicly. Specifically." Vanessa frowned harder. "Grandma didn't have that kind of money." "She did," I said. "She just never advertised it." That part was true. Grandma Ruth had lived in the same modest brick house for 40 years, clipped coupons, drove one old Buick until it died, and let everyone assume frugality meant smallness. It didn't. It meant strategy. I pulled out the next page. A letter from the estate attorney. Then another. Distribution summary. Asset liquidation. Managed trust terms. My name, my social, my age at disbursement. My father took the attorney letter from the table and read the top half. I watched the exact second his memory connected. He looked at my mother, then back at the page. "You knew?" he asked her. My mother folded her hands too neatly. "I knew there was something set aside." I said nothing. Vanessa stared at her. "You knew Mara had money?" My mother lifted her chin. "Not like that." I reached into the folder and set down the letter that mattered most. Grandma's own note. Short, dated, witnessed, attached to the trust file. "Mara will use this wisely because she knows what it means to go without. She sees people clearly. Don't let anyone guilt her out of it." The room went silent in a way that felt different from before. Not explosive. Surgical. Vanessa read the note and whispered, "Oh my God." My mother didn't touch it. Couldn't. Because now the dead woman she had spent years quoting for moral authority had left instructions that cut straight through her. Derek tried anyway. "That still doesn't explain why she was sneaking around like some." "She wasn't sneaking," my father said. That was the first time he had interrupted someone on my behalf in years. Derek turned. "Excuse me?" My father folded the letter back onto the table. "She was protecting herself." Derek scoffed. "From family?" I answered before my father could. "Yes." No one had a comeback for that. Vanessa sat down slowly, eyes still on the trust papers. "How much did Grandma leave you?" I exhaled once. "Enough to build a life, not enough to survive being stupid with it." My mother finally found her voice. "So you lied by omission." I looked at her, really looked at her. "That's rich. You let this family think you were struggling." "No. You told this family I was struggling because it made you comfortable." Her face tightened. I kept going. "You liked me better as the one who couldn't get it together. The sister in the cheap coat. The daughter in the apartment. The one everyone could pity a little and dismiss a lot." I touched the trust statement. "Because if I wasn't broke, then the story you built about me stopped working." Tasha let out a slow breath, like she'd been holding it for an hour. Vanessa's voice was smaller now. "Is that why you never said anything? About any of it?" "Partly." "Then why pay the bills?" "Because I loved them. Because I kept hoping decency would be contagious. Because every time my mother cried, some stupid younger part of me still believed being needed was the same as being valued. But I didn't say all that. I said, because every request came dressed as an emergency. My father sat back down. How many people knew? I answered immediately. The estate attorney, the trust manager, me. Then I looked at my mother. And Mom, after she opened mail that wasn't hers. Vanessa whipped toward her. You opened Mara's mail? It came to the house by mistake. No, I said. It came to my old address after I'd already changed everything. You opened it anyway. My mother's silence said enough. Vanessa pushed back from the table like she suddenly didn't want to be near any of us. So let me get this straight. She pointed at Derek first. You lied about our finances. Then at my mother. You hid it from me. Then at me, but softer. And you paid for all of it out of money. Grandma specifically said no one should guilt you into giving away. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Derek saw the room turning past repair and made his last smart move of the night. He changed targets. He looked at Vanessa and said, She's not telling you the whole story. I felt it immediately, that cold shift, because there was only one whole story left in that folder that could still hurt me. Vanessa frowned. What are you talking about? Derek looked at me, not her. Tell them about the agreement. My pulse kicked once, hard. My father noticed. What agreement? I kept my face still, but Derek saw enough to know he'd hit something real. His mouth curved for the first time in 20 minutes. Cruel. Relieved. There it is, he said. Ask her why she kept paying after she knew what everyone thought of her. Ask her what Linda promised. Vanessa turned to my mother. Promised? My mother's face emptied. That was worse than guilt. That was recognition. I closed the folder slowly, one hand flat over the remaining pages. Because buried under the trust letters and account statements was a single signed document I had prayed I wouldn't need to show. Vanessa saw my hand stop. Mara, she said. What agreement? I looked at my mother. She wouldn't meet my eyes. So I pulled the document free. One page, signed, dated. And the second my father saw the header, his chair scraped violently across the floor. My father didn't just stand. He shot up so hard the chair skidded back and clipped the wall. What is that? He said. I held the page by the corner, but everyone had already seen enough. Settlement agreement. Vanessa's eyes moved from the header to my mother's face. Derek had gone very still again, but this time it wasn't panic. It was calculation. He knew exactly what that paper was. My mother whispered, Mara, don't. I looked at her. You've said that a lot tonight. My father came around the table. Give it to me. I did. He took the page, read the first paragraph, then stopped halfway through the second, like the words had physically hit him. Vanessa stepped closer. Dad? He didn't answer. He just kept reading, mouth flattening harder with every line. I knew what he was seeing because I had memorized it months ago. The date, the parties listed, the repayment terms, and the clause my mother had insisted on adding in her own neat, vicious way. Voluntary financial assistance rendered without expectation of family disclosure, public acknowledgement, or future claim of reimbursement beyond terms outlined herein. Vanessa grabbed the page from his hand. My mother lunged too late. Vanessa read faster than he had. Her eyes scanned the first page, then dropped to the signature block. She froze. Then she looked up at me like the floor had given way under her heels. You made her sign this? My mother found enough breath to answer. It was to keep things clear. I laughed once. No humor in it. Clear? Vanessa read aloud, voice shaking now. Recipient agrees not to discuss the source of funds with any immediate family member except where legally required. Tasha covered her mouth again. What? My father's voice dropped into something I had never heard from him before. Linda. My mother straightened on instinct, but it didn't work. The room had already turned on her. It was private financial help. I was trying to keep embarrassment contained. Contained? Vanessa snapped. You gagged her. No, my mother said, too fast. No, that is not what this is. I stepped closer to the table. Read the next line. Vanessa did, then stopped breathing for a second. Her voice came out flatter this time. Provider acknowledges that repeated financial rescue may create emotional misunderstandings and agrees assistance shall not be used to imply closeness, influence, or moral leverage within the family. No one moved. That clause had gutted me the first time I read it. Not because it was legal. It wasn't, really. It was flimsy and ugly and built to intimidate, drafted by some local attorney my mother had called a friend from church. It gutted me because of what it assumed, that I would help because I wanted power, that I would confuse sacrifice with love, that I needed to be warned not to feel entitled to kindness after paying for theirs. Vanessa lowered the paper slowly. You made her sign something saying she couldn't even talk about helping us. My mother lifted both hands. I did not make her do anything. That sentence lit something in me. I reached into the envelope and took out the last piece attached to the agreement. The email thread, printed, time-stamped, her words, not mine. I laid it on top of the contract. Mara, if you truly want to help this family and not create more drama, sign the agreement. Otherwise, I'll take your hesitation as proof that your generosity is about attention. Vanessa read it. Then the next reply from my mother, 30 minutes later. A decent daughter would understand discretion. Then the one after that. If you loved us, this would not be difficult. Derek glanced away first. Not Vanessa. She kept reading until she hit my response at the bottom. Fine. Send the final version. She looked up at me. You signed it? My throat tightened, but I kept my voice level. Yes. Why? Because she knew exactly where to press. Because after a lifetime of being told that my worth showed up only when I was useful, I still confused obedience with peace. Because I thought maybe if I signed it, paid the bills, and stayed quiet, eventually one of them would look at me and see someone they had underestimated instead of someone they could use. But again, I didn't give them that much of me. Because the electric company had posted a shut-off warning on Mom's account, I said. And because you were 3 days from losing the moving contract. Vanessa stared at her mother. My mother's eyes flashed. You're twisting this to make me monstrous. My father said, stop talking. She turned to him, stunned. Excuse me? I said stop talking. He pointed at the agreement. You had our daughter sign a confidentiality clause so you could keep taking money from her while insulting her at family dinners. My mother actually laughed in disbelief. Our daughter? Now she's our daughter? The room went cold. That landed harder than anything Derek had said. Even he looked at her. Vanessa took one step back. Mom. But my mother was unraveling now. Years of posture cracking under pressure. She wanted to help, she said, voice rising. She always wanted to swoop in and play savior. No, I said. You wanted a hidden account with feelings. Her head snapped toward me. You think you're so noble. I think I paid for your life. She flinched, then struck. At least I built a family people wanted to be around. The words hung in the room like a slap. My father closed his eyes once. Vanessa whispered, What is wrong with you? My mother's chest rose and fell fast. She looked around the room like she still thought she could recover this, still thought the right tone would put everybody back in place. Derek saw the collapse too, and this time he didn't interrupt to save her. He interrupted to save himself. He straightened, pointed at the agreement, and said, That's not the worst thing she signed. Every head turned. I looked at him. He smiled. Not big, just enough. Ugly and certain. Vanessa frowned. What are you talking about? Derek reached into the inside pocket of his blazer. My pulse dropped, because I knew that motion. I knew what paper lived there. He pulled out a folded copy and set it on the table. Not the agreement. A check, old, canceled, cleared, with my signature on the front and his company name on the payee line. Vanessa stared at it. What is that? Derek looked at me and said, Ask your sister why she paid my business $15,000. For a second, the room made no sound at all. Not a fork, not a breath, not the hum of the refrigerator. Vanessa looked from the check to me so slowly it felt worse than if she'd shouted. $15,000? Derek leaned back just enough to look comfortable again. He'd found oxygen. A way to turn the beam. That's right, he said. So before everybody acts like I'm the only one hiding things, maybe ask why your sister was writing checks to my company. My father picked up the canceled check first. His thumb moved over the endorsement stamp on the back, then the bank mark, then the memo line. Consulting retainer. He looked up. Mara, I held his gaze. I know what it looks like. Derek laughed. No, you know what it is. My mother had gone quiet in the way she always did when someone else's shame became available as shelter. She watched me now with a hard little spark in her eyes, like she could finally breathe again. Vanessa reached for the check. Why would you pay him? I should have answered immediately. But the truth had weight, not because it was wrong, because it was humiliating. Derek saw the pause and moved in. Tell her? I looked at him. You first. He shrugged. Fine. Your sister came to me last year asking for business advice. Vanessa blinked. What? She wanted help investing the trust money. Said she didn't trust normal advisors. That is not what happened. He spread his hands. Close enough. I turned to Vanessa. He pitched me. That cut through the room. Even Derek's expression changed a fraction, because that was the part he hadn't wanted me to say first. I stepped closer to the table. At your anniversary dinner last year, he pulled me aside on the back patio and asked if I'd ever considered putting some of my funds into real growth vehicles. That was his phrase. Vanessa's eyes narrowed at him. You knew about her money then? Derek didn't answer. I did. Yes, because Mom told him. My mother snapped. I did not. You forwarded him the attorney introduction email by accident, I said, then pretended it was nothing. My father turned to her sharply. You sent him estate documents? It was one email. One email too many, he said. Derek cut in, impatient now. Can we stay on topic? No, Vanessa said. This is the topic. He ignored her and looked at me. You wrote the check voluntarily. Yes, I said. After you lied. That landed. Vanessa's face tightened. About what? I pulled one last folded packet from the envelope, smaller than the others. Thin, 3 pages stapled together. The contract. Not with my mother, with Derek's company. I handed it to Vanessa. She read the header out loud. Strategic Capital Placement and Development Consulting. Then she looked up. This sounds fake. It was, I said. Derek scoffed. It was not fake. It was a polished scam, I said. Just one with letterhead. He took a step toward me. Watch your mouth. My father stepped between us before I had to move. Try that again, my father said quietly. Derek stopped. Vanessa kept reading. I could see the exact line where her stomach dropped. Guaranteed asset-backed short-term placement. She looked up. You told her it was asset-backed? Yes, Derek said. Because it was supposed to be. Supposed to be? I repeated. He exhaled through his nose. The project shifted. I laughed. There was no project. He looked at me with open hatred now. You don't know that. I know the LLC address was a mailbox store. Vanessa's head snapped toward him. I kept going. I know the development photos in your pitch deck were lifted from another builder's website. I know the partner firm listed on page 2 had dissolved 8 months earlier. And I know you stopped returning my emails the second the check cleared. Tasha whispered, Oh my God. Vanessa lowered the contract slowly. Is that true? Derek straightened. No. I reached into the packet and placed 3 documents in a row. A screenshot from the state business registry showing the company status, a printout of the dissolved partner entity, a side-by-side comparison of the pitch deck images and the original listings they'd been copied from. Vanessa's face emptied out. My father didn't even sit back down. He just looked from one page to the next with the kind of expression men wear right before they decide not to protect someone anymore. Derek changed tactics again. It wasn't a scam. I intended to repay her. When? I asked. He didn't answer. I tapped the canceled check. That was 14 months ago. He looked at Vanessa instead of me. I used it to stabilize cash flow during a transition. I turned to her. He used my money to plug holes. Her voice came out thin. In what? I held up the hotel statement again. In everything. The room finally connected it. Not just debt, not just image, a pattern. He'd been patching personal spending, house costs, vendor balances, and whatever else he'd buried, moving money around until the whole thing looked like success from the curb. Vanessa's eyes went to the check, then the contract, then the jewelry charges, then to him. You took $15,000 from my sister under false pretenses. He snapped. I was going to pay her back. You wrote that too, I said. He froze. I pulled out the printed text exchange, his number, my phone, timestamps. Need a little more runway. Don't make this weird around Vanessa. Then another. You know I'm good for it. Then the one that had made me stop hoping. You've got plenty. Stop acting like this hurts you. Vanessa closed her eyes, just once. When she opened them again, something had changed. Not broken. Sharpened. My mother saw it and tried to step in. Vanessa, this is between them. Vanessa turned on her so fast my mother actually stepped back. No, Vanessa said. It's been between all of us the whole time. She looked at the check again. Did you know about this too? My mother hesitated. That was enough. Vanessa laughed. A small, stunned sound. You did. It was an investment, my mother said. I stared at her. You told me it was safe because Derek was family. My father turned slowly toward her. You told her to do it? I suggested. He cut her off. You vouched for him. She looked at him with sudden fury, like she couldn't believe he'd chosen this night to grow a spine. Someone had to believe in this family. My father said, belief is not theft. That shut the room down again. Derek took one step back from the table, then another. This is getting hysterical. No, Vanessa said. This is getting clear. She picked up the contract and the check and held them together, staring at both as if seeing the shape of her marriage for the first time. Then she looked at me. How did you find out it was fake? I met her eyes. Because when he stopped responding, I hired someone. Derek's face drained. My father noticed immediately. Someone who did what? I reached into my bag, not the envelope this time, but the zip compartment I hadn't touched all night, and pulled out a small black flash drive. I set it on the table. Derek whispered, no. Vanessa stared at it. What's on that? I looked at him first, then at her. Everything he thought I'd never see. Derek moved first, not toward me, toward the flash drive. Vanessa stepped in front of him before he got there. It was such a small movement, half a step at most, but it changed the entire room. For the first time all night, she wasn't looking to him for answers. She was blocking him from the evidence. Don't, she said. His voice came out strained. Vanessa, move. No. He looked at my father. You're really going to let this circus keep going? My father didn't blink. You should be very careful what you say next. Derek let out a short laugh that sounded more like a choke. You all want a villain so badly, you're not even thinking. She hired somebody to dig into private business records. I hired an investigator, I said, after you took $15,000 from me under false pretenses and stopped responding. Vanessa turned to me. What's on it? I picked up the flash drive, rolled it once between my fingers, then set it back down. A copy of the report, I said. Bank-linked business filings, property records, vendor complaints, archived listings, and surveillance stills from the Halcyon. Derek's face changed at the last word. Vanessa saw it. So it wasn't business. He snapped. It's not what you think. She laughed in his face. That sentence should be printed on your forehead. Tasha looked between them, like she couldn't process how quickly the room had gone from ugly to unrecognizable. My mother stood rigid by the sideboard, clutching her napkin so tightly it had twisted into a rope. I took a thin packet from my bag, the summary copy I'd made in case no one ever opened the drive, and placed it on the table. Derek lunged verbally this time. Don't read that. Vanessa sat down, opened the packet, and started reading anyway. Page 1 was simple. Timeline, dates, entities, missed payments, transfers, contradictory statements, a map of the lies. She turned the first page, then the second. On page 3, she stopped. What is Kessler Design Holdings? Derek didn't answer. I did. A shell company he used in 2 proposals and 1 vendor account. My father frowned. Shell company? A paper entity, I said. No real office, no operating footprint, just enough structure to invoice through. Derek barked out a laugh. That's a gross exaggeration. I slid over the registry printout. Then explain why its listed suite is a mailbox store between a nail salon and a tax kiosk. His mouth closed. Vanessa read further. The air in the room felt brittle. Then she hit the hotel section. The summary included dates, invoice numbers, parking records, and 2 still images. Derek entering the Halcyon lobby on a Friday evening and leaving Sunday morning with a woman in a camel coat and oversized sunglasses. Vanessa stared at the image so long I thought maybe she couldn't understand what she was seeing. Then she whispered, "Who is that?" Derek finally tried to step closer. "Vanessa, give me that." She jerked the packet away. "Who is that? It's not. Who?" He looked around the room like maybe somebody would save him from the answer. Nobody did. So I said, "Her name is Elise Mercer." Vanessa's head turned toward me, stunned. "You know her name?" "Yes." "How?" "Because she's listed as the registered contact on one of the vendor communications, and because the investigator found her social profiles before they were locked down." Derek's voice went flat. "You had no right." I ignored him. Vanessa flipped to the next page. There were screenshots there. Nothing obscene. Nothing excessive. Just enough. Posts archived before deletion. A tagged dinner. A blurred reflection in a mirror. A bracelet I recognized from the credit card statement. Vanessa looked at Derek. Were you with her while telling me we couldn't pay the lighting supplier? He didn't answer. That was answer enough. My father stepped away from the table and toward the window, one hand on his hip, like the room had become too small for his anger. Tasha had tears in her eyes now, not because she was devastated, because she was witnessing the kind of family rupture people talk about in parking lots later. My mother finally moved. Vanessa, she said softly, maybe we should not do this in front of everyone. Vanessa looked up at her with a stare so empty it was almost worse than rage. In front of everyone? She said. You mean the everyone who already knew enough to keep taking my money, my trust, and my marriage apart in private? My mother flinched. I was trying to hold things together. No, Vanessa said. You were holding the image together. Silence. Then she turned back to the packet. The last section was the one I had saved for precisely this moment. Not because it was the most dramatic, because it was the cleanest. Phone records tied to reimbursements, vendor calls, a sequence showing Derek receiving money from my mother, transferring smaller amounts through the shell company, then using mixed funds to cover personal charges and house expenses, while telling Vanessa they were waiting on cleared reserves. She read the sequence twice, then set the packet down, very carefully, and smiled, not a happy smile, the kind that means someone has stopped hoping and started deciding. Derek saw it and his whole body tensed. Vanessa? She stood, picked up her wine glass, and before anyone understood what she was doing, she poured the entire thing over the front of his shirt, red spread across white cotton and dripped onto the hardwood. Derek staggered back. What the hell? Vanessa set the empty glass down without looking away from him. That, she said, is the least expensive thing you've lost tonight. Tasha gasped. My father didn't intervene. My mother said, Vanessa, stop this. Vanessa rounded on her. No, you stop. Her voice cracked across the room like a snapped wire. You stop deciding what I'm allowed to know. You stop calling cruelty discretion. You stop using Mara like an emergency fund and then sneering at her because she doesn't dress like a fraud. My mother opened her mouth. Vanessa cut her off. No, you listen. She pointed at the papers. She paid your utilities. She covered our deposits. She saved this family from public humiliation over and over, and you made her sign an agreement so you could keep mocking her at dinner. My mother's eyes filled, but Vanessa didn't soften. And you, she said, turning back to Derek, used my sister's money to subsidize an affair and a fake business while telling me I was too emotional to understand finances. Derek tried one last time. You are blowing this out of proportion. Vanessa laughed. Out of proportion? She picked up the canceled check and slapped it against his chest. You stole $15,000. It was an investment. It was fraud. The word hit the room like a dropped plate. Derek looked at my father. Tell her to calm down. My father turned slowly, then said, Get out. Derek blinked. Excuse me? You heard me. My father pointed at the back door. Get out of this house before I call the police myself. My mother inhaled sharply. Frank, he didn't even look at her. Not one word. Derek looked around the room, still hoping someone would pull him back from the edge. No one did. His eyes landed on me last, full of hate and disbelief. You think this is a win, he said. I met his stare. No. He smirked, wet shirt clinging to him, face ugly again. Good, because you're still alone. The room went dead quiet. Then Vanessa stepped forward and slapped him so hard his head turned. Nobody moved. Vanessa's hand shook at her side. Get out, she said. He looked at her, then at the papers, then at the back door. And for the first time since I had known him, Derek looked small. He grabbed his keys from the counter and walked out without another word. The back door slammed hard enough to rattle the glass in the cabinets. No one spoke for 3 full seconds. Then my father turned to my mother and said, You're next. My mother stared at my father like she hadn't heard him correctly. You cannot be serious. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. I am completely serious. The room looked wrecked, even though almost nothing had physically broken. Papers spread across the white tablecloth. One overturned chair. Red wine dripping from the edge of the dining table onto the floorboards. The lemon cake untouched in the center like some joke no one wanted to explain. Vanessa stood near the back door, chest rising hard, one hand still trembling from the slap. Tasha had gone silent again. I stayed where I was, fingers resting lightly on the edge of the envelope that had finally emptied itself. My mother let out a cold laugh. So this is what we're doing? Turning on me after everything I've done for this family? My father looked at the papers. That phrase should be retired tonight. She folded her arms. I held this family together. No, Vanessa said. Her voice was hoarse now, but steady. You managed appearances. My mother turned to her, offended more than ashamed. You are upset. I understand that, but one reckless scene doesn't erase years of sacrifice. Vanessa actually smiled at that, a tired, disbelieving smile. Sacrifice, she said. Whose? No answer. My mother looked at me instead. Easier target. Familiar one. You knew this would destroy everyone. I held her gaze. No, I knew the lies were destroying everyone. I just stopped helping. She took a step toward me. You wanted this moment. There was a time that accusation would have opened me right down the middle. It used to work because I cared whether she thought I was kind, good, worth defending. Now it just sounded old. What I wanted, I said, was one dinner where you didn't need me small to feel comfortable. Her face tightened. My father moved around the table and picked up the agreement again. He looked at the page like he still couldn't believe it had been signed in this family, under this roof, by his wife and daughter. When did you do this? He asked her. She hesitated. Last spring, I said. Vanessa turned sharply. Last spring? I nodded. Right before your closing got delayed. That landed. She remembered. Of course she did. That was the week she'd called me from a furniture showroom laughing about how grown up it all felt, while I was in my apartment signing a paper that told me my help bought me no voice, no acknowledgement, no place at the table except as a hidden wallet. Vanessa looked at my mother like she was seeing the shape of every past conversation in a new light. That's why you kept telling me Mara was being distant. My mother said nothing. That's why you kept saying she had her own issues. Vanessa's voice got quieter, sharper. You were covering this. I was protecting peace. I said, peace for who? She snapped toward me. You always do this. You make everything so dramatic. I laughed softly. I printed your emails. That ended that line of attack. My father set the agreement down and faced her fully. You will repay Mara. My mother blinked. Repay? Yes. With what money? Yours. She almost smiled. There isn't enough. That's not her problem anymore, he said. Vanessa stepped away from the door and came back to the table. Her face had changed over the last 10 minutes. Less shock now, more decision. She looked at me first, then down at the spreadsheet total again, then at the trust papers. When she finally spoke, her voice was lower than I'd ever heard it. I need to say this before anything else. I waited. She swallowed. I believed them. The room went still. She didn't cry. That made it harder to hear. I let myself believe you were struggling because you were careless, or difficult, or behind. She looked down for half a second, then back up. And every time I laughed at one of those jokes, or let Derek make them, or let Mom talk about you like you were some cautionary tale, I was wrong. I didn't say anything. She took another breath. I'm sorry. Simple words, late words, real ones. And because they were real, they hurt more than the cruelty had. Tasha wiped at her eyes and looked away. My father sat down slowly, all the anger still there, but weighted now by something older and sadder. My mother remained standing, arms crossed so tightly she looked cold. I nodded once. Thank you. Vanessa glanced at the back door where Derek had disappeared. I'm filing. My mother's head snapped up. Don't be ridiculous. Vanessa turned on her. Against him. Then, after a beat, and maybe not just him. That finally broke something in my mother's face. You would take strangers' side over your family? Vanessa's answer came clean. No, I'm taking truth over whoever's left. Silence. My father rubbed a hand over his mouth. Vanessa, you can stay here tonight. She laughed once, exhausted. In this house? Fair point. He didn't argue. Instead, he looked at me. Do you want to pursue this? The question had layers. Civil, criminal, family, all of it. I looked down at the table, at the check, the invoices, the trust note from Grandma Ruth, telling a dead simple truth no one had honored until now. Don't let anyone guilt her out of it. I picked up that note and folded it carefully. Then I answered. Yes, on the money Derek took. My mother opened her mouth. I held up a hand and she stopped. But not like this, I said. Not with more shouting, not with private favors. It goes through lawyers, in writing, clean. My father nodded once. He understood that language. Vanessa did too. Ref, my mother looked between us and heard the thing she hated most, a decision made without her. You can't freeze me out. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I said the truest thing I'd said all night. I'm not freezing you out. I'm stepping back. She gave a tight, bitter laugh. So, that's it? You punish us and walk away? No. I picked up my bag, the envelope, the remaining papers. This is the boundary. I slid the signed agreement across the table toward her. This ends tonight. No more emergency transfers. No more quiet rescues. No more calls after midnight pretending panic is love. I looked at Vanessa. If you need documents for your lawyer, I'll send copies directly. Then at my father. If you want a record of what I paid on the house accounts, you can have it. And finally, at my mother. But you do not get access to me just because there's a crisis. You don't get to insult me in public and invoice me in private. That part of my life is over. Her eyes filled then, whether from rage or grief, I couldn't tell. Maybe both. Mara, she said, and for once my name sounded unfamiliar in her mouth. I waited. She had nothing else. Vanessa moved first. She stepped around the table and touched my arm, light enough that I could have pulled away if I wanted to. I didn't. I'll call you tomorrow, she said. I considered that. Then shook my head gently. Email. She understood immediately. Not rejection. Structure. Proof. No more blurred lines. She nodded. Okay. Email. Tasha whispered. I'm sorry, too. I gave her a small look. Next time, don't sit there and laugh. She dropped her eyes. I won't. My father stood as I reached the door. Mara, I turned. He looked older than he had at dinner, older than he had 3 hours earlier, like truth had cost him something too. I should have seen it sooner, he said. Maybe he should have. But I was too tired for autopsies, so I just said, you see it now. Then I opened the back door and stepped out into the cold. The night air hit clean. No chandelier light, no staged warmth, no voices trying to pin me back into a role I had outgrown. Behind me, through the closed door, I could still hear movement in the house. Muffled voices, the scrape of chairs, the collapse after the performance. They would deal with lawyers, filings, explanations, gossip, fallout. For the first time, none of that belonged to me. I walked to my car with the envelope under one arm and Grandma's note in my coat pocket. The same coat they mocked, the same one I had worn while paying their bills. I got in, started the engine, and sat for 1 second with my hands on the wheel. Not crying, not shaking, just still. That stillness again. But this time it wasn't a blade on a table. It was a door locking. I put the car in reverse and left them in the bright, expensive house that had finally run out of darkness to hide in.